Muppets telling the story of immigration to the US? Yeah, that almost happened in Virginia. Don't believe me? Stay tuned. Welcome to Pop Culture Passport, your ultimate guide to quirky and cool destinations across the US. I'm your host, Beth Scalacci, aka the Roman Yeti, here to help you dive into the world of theme parks, uncover film and TV locations, and explore quirky museums, roadside attractions, and legendary venues that capture the heart and soul of this unique country. So grab your pop culture passport and let's discover destinations that resonate with your interest, not just with what's trending on social media. Are you ready? Let's roam! Welcome back. Yes, Halloween was yesterday, but it's still sort of spooky season for this episode because I just couldn't resist digging into this topic. We're talking about Disney abandoned parks and park ideas. First, I'm going to talk about two Disney parks that did not make it, and that being River Country and Discovery Island. And then we're going to jump to talk about some ideas that got abandoned somewhere during the planning process. One of the parks could have actually been right down the road from where I live. Now, this is a topic I've wanted to dive into for a while, so let's grab our pop culture passport and let's jump right in. All right, so we're going to start with River Country. Now, this was Disney's very first water park, and River Country opened on June 20th, 1976, and was located on the shores of Bay Lake at Walt Disney World in Florida. And it was designed to feel like a rustic, old fashioned swimming hole, the kind that you'd stumble upon in the backwoods of America. And the whole place had this sort of laid back summer camp vibe, wooden docks, rope swings, and natural water pulled straight from Bay Lake. So what set it apart was that water. It used filtered water from the lake to fill its pools and attractions. So it felt more natural and less like your typical overly chlorinated, water park or pool. And guests loved it because you felt like you were swimming in the great outdoors, but with all the fun of a theme park and Disney. So River Country had some pretty fun sounding attractions if you're into water parks, which I'm not. But there was a hoop and hollow water slides, which would send you twisting down into the swimming hole, and slippery slide falls where you'd shoot down into a lake with a splash. There was a main swimming area called Bay Cove, which was actually a sand bottom lagoon that let you wade and swim in natural water. And like I said, rope swings, barrel bridges, and there was even a beach for sunbathing. So, in terms of popularity, River Country was a hit when it first opened. Families loved it because it offered, that alternative away from the hustle and bustle of the park. And this was especially popular in the 70s, 80s when it was really the only water park Walt Disney World had. But as the years went on, newer parks like Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach stole the spotlight, and because they had bigger attractions and more modern features. Unfortunately, River Country officially closed in November 2001, and it was supposed to reopen in the spring of 2002, but it never did. So there became a growing concern about the safety of using the lake water due to bacteria, and with the rise of more modern water parks, River Country just sort of couldn't keep up. By 2005, Disney announced that it would remain permanently closed. So there was like sort of that 3-year span in there that no one really knows what was going on. The whole area was left abandoned for years, and nature slowly reclaimed it. So what's there today? Well, in 2019, Disney finally demolished most of what remained of River Country to make way for a new resort, which was later scrapped due to the pandemic. Now, there is talk of a new resort being built again, but I think, we're just going to have to wait and see until something official goes up there. I have to be honest, I'm not a big water park fan. I do enjoy a lazy river, but I'm not a big water park fan. And I've never been to Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach, so I don't really have a whole lot to offer to this discussion. I my only thing is, like, why did they stay quiet for so long? It's just so suspicious. Um, I appreciate that they were doing the filtering of water, but, like, you know, what was that the problem? Was there something else? I don't know, it just seems all a little weird, bad PR move in my mind. But at least, it seems like they took what they learned from River Country and help it make the other 2 water parks very successful. So, we also have to jump if we're gonna talk about abandoned Disney things, we have to talk about Discovery Island. So, Discovery Island opened on April 8th, 1974, and it was located in Bay Lake also. Not far from Magic Kingdom. And the idea behind the park was to create a wildlife sanctuary where guests could explore and learn about exotic birds, reptiles, and tropical plants. It just provided this peaceful, laid back place, and it was perfect for nature lovers. It was originally called Treasure Island, but it was renamed to better reflect its focus on wildlife. And guests could walk through lush gardens, like I said, and visit aviaries filled with rare birds and see exhibits with reptiles and other animals. Sort of sounds familiar, right? It was it was more of that natural experience than you could get at a Disney park at that time. No rides, no thrill attractions, just nature. So they had attractions like a bird show, they had a walk through aviary with tropical birds flying overhead. They had a flamingo lagoon and Pelican Bay, and this is where the guests could observe these beautiful birds in a natural setting. Now, what made Discovery Island so unique was its role as a sanctuary. So, Disney used the island for conservation work like breeding endangered birds and caring for injured animals. It was really ahead of its time when it came to promoting the environmental awareness. Now, it was fairly popular in its early years, and, it was just, again, another break from the busy parks. But as Disney World grew, and especially after Animal Kingdom opened in 1998, Discovery Island's appeal began to fade. Like, why visit the small island when you can go to Animal Kingdom and get the full safaris and other animal exhibits? So by 1999, Disney decided to close Discovery Island, and it has remained abandoned ever since. Now, unlike River Country, the island wasn't demolished. It's still out there in Bay Lake, slowly being taken back over by nature. And the buildings and aviaries are still there, covered in vines and trees, and it's off limits to guests. Now, of course, that has not stopped people, some urban explorers, from sneaking onto the island. There's a lot of mystery around what Disney might do with that island in the future, but for now, it's just sitting there frozen in time. So if you've ever taken the boat ride across Bay Lake and wondered about that little island you passed, now you know that story. Now, based on the dates of its existence, I was probably at Walt Disney World while this was open, but I cannot remember um, anything about it. I'm pretty sure we didn't visit it or even know about it. So, I it's definitely something I would have liked to check out, but I'm really glad a lot of those attractions had found its way over to my beloved Animal Kingdom. So now let's take a little turn. We've talked about parks that no longer exist, but let's talk about abandoned dreams and plans from Disney. And these are the ones that just never made it past planning stages. Disney has had some wild ideas over the year, and a few of them came this close to becoming reality, but were scrapped before construction ever began. So let's take a look at some of the more interesting ones. Let's start with Port Disney, which was planned for Long Beach, California. And the idea for Port Disney began in the late 1980s, and it was supposed to be Disney's big expansion into the waterfront area. And it was a huge plan, and it would have included a massive resort, new theme park called Disney Sea. Sound familiar? A marine themed park where guests could explore the wonders of the ocean, from deep sea adventures to mythical legends. As for some of the planned attractions, the park would have had rides like an underwater adventure through shipwrecks and deep sea exploration areas. And there was also a section that was going to focus on mythical sea creatures and have places like Atlantis. Um, and beyond Disney Sea, Port Disney would have included a massive waterfront resort with hotels, a shopping district, and even a marina where guests could dock their own boats and explore the park. So, why was it abandoned? Well, mainly for environmental concerns. Long Beach's waterfront ecosystem was very sensitive, and there were a lot of worries about the impact such a huge development would have had on the marine life and coastal environment. And on top of that, Disney was already focusing heavily on expanding the Disneyland resort, and they ultimately chose to put their resources into what would become Disney California Adventure. So by 1991, Disney had officially canceled the Port Disney project. But Port Disney didn't entirely disappear. Many of the ideas from Disney Sea were later purposed for Tokyo Disney Sea, which opened in 2001. Tokyo Disney Sea is now one of the most beloved Disney parks in the world, known for its incredible theming and immersive environments. So while we never got Port Disney in California, its legacy lives on in Japan. Now, I totally understand and agree with the reasons that this wasn't built. Totally makes sense, and I'm actually glad. I mean, the impact, who knows what it would have been. But this park could have been so cool, and it just fuels me wanting to get to Tokyo even more. I also learned that during this time, Disney had some type of usage rights to the Queen Mary, which is also docked in Long Beach. So it would have been fascinating to see how they would have incorporated that into the port as well. So I would have loved to seen plans written up on that one. Next, we got to talk about Westcott. Yes, you heard me. Westcott, which was planned for Anaheim, and was going to go right next to Disneyland. Now, this project got started in the late 80s and around the same time as that Port Disney project we were just talking about. This was supposed to be the West Coast version of Epcot. So, Westcott was meant to be a futuristic park that celebrated innovation, technology, and also global cultures. Very much in the spirit of Epcot in Florida. And just like in Florida, it was going to have two main sections, Future World and then the World Showcase that was going to have different countries. And yeah, again, sounds very familiar, right? So, why did this project get abandoned? Well, the short answer is cost. Building a park on that scale in Anaheim was going to be really expensive. And there were concerns from the local community about the impact it would have on traffic and the area's infrastructure. Hmm. The project faced opposition from local residents and officials, and Disney realized that the financial risk was too high, and it officially shelved Westcott in the mid 90s. Now, just like Port Disney, Westcott left its mark, and the land that was originally set aside for Westcott eventually became Disney California Adventure, which opened in 2001. Now, while Westcott never came to life, the idea of creating a second gate at Disneyland Resort was realized with California Adventure, but with a very different theme. Again, this is one I'm glad didn't happen because I love California Adventure as it is now. I know it had some growing pains in the beginning, but I love where it is and what's going on. I enjoy Avengers Campus. I adore Radiator Springs. So we wouldn't have got those if we got Westcott. I like that Disneyland and Walt Disney World have, their own things and difference. I don't want exact replicas on both coast. So I love that Walt Disney World has Epcot and it's the East Coast thing and West Coast has California Adventure. So again, not really disappointed. I think that was a good call. Um But I would be interested to see what countries they added. Would they have been the same? Would they have been different in the showcase? So World of Showcase. Now, here is sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. Here's one of the most intriguing abandoned projects to me. Disney's America, and it was planned for Haymarket, Virginia, which is located outside of Washington, D.C. Now, this project started in 1993, and it was going to be a history-themed park focused on telling the story of America through immersive attractions. Disney was it's so hard to explain. Disney's America was going to take guests on a journey through major moments in US history, from the founding of the country to the Civil War, World War II, and even the struggles of the civil rights movement. The park would have been a mix of entertainment and education, giving families a chance to learn about history in a way that was both engaging and respectful. As for the attractions, Disney again had some pretty big ideas. One of the headliners was going to be the Civil War coaster, where students would ride through a Civil War battlefield. If you could see me cringing as I'm reading through this script, um, there would also be an Ellis Island experience where guests could see what it was like for immigrants arriving in America during the 1900s. And another planned attraction was Victory Field, a World War II themed area where guests could experience the thrill of flying a simulated dogfight. So, why was this abandoned? I think you probably know. The main reason was backlash. The project faced heavy opposition from politicians, historians, and the local communities. Many people felt that Disney would commercialize sensitive parts of American history, and there were also environmental concerns about building such a massive park near Civil War battlefields. And as the controversy grew, and by 1994, Disney pulled the plug on this project. Now, while Disney's America never came to be, its legacy lives on in some of the educational elements found in other parts, like Epcot's American Adventures. And this project really just shows you how tricky it is to balance entertainment with historical storytelling. And gotta say, as someone who lives in the DC area, this park could have been a terrible, terrible mistake. I would have liked to have a park closer to me in Maryland, but not this one. Um, just knowing how they have gotten in trouble for doing other things in, the lens of that time, and now looking back with a 2024 lens, like, oh, what would have happened? So remember in the beginning when I teased about the Muppets? Word was that the Muppets were going to be on a ride or film discussing the immigration story. You know I love the Muppets, but looking back at this idea, like I said, with the 2024 lens, makes me think that this could have been problematic. And as much as I like to have a park, when it comes to history in the DC area, I'm going to head to Williamsburg, or I'm going to head to Gettysburg for my history lessons, and leave the fun and IP to Disney for sure. Now, last but not least, we're going to talk about Beastly Kingdom. And while this wasn't a park, this was a land that was going to be part of Disney's Animal Kingdom. The idea for Beastly Kingdom started in the early 90s when they were doing all the planning for Animal Kingdom, and it was going to be a land dedicated to mythical creatures. And the concept was pretty straightforward. If Animal Kingdom was going to showcase real animals, then Beastly Kingdom would focus on creatures of legend and myth. Think dragons, unicorns, and other fantastical beasts. The land was split into two sections: the good side, which would be home to peaceful creatures like unicorns, and the evil side, where you'd find dragons and other fearsome creatures. There were some pretty cool attractions planned for Beastly Kingdom. One of the biggest was Dragon's Tower, a dark roller coaster where guests would explore a ruined castle and come face to face with a fire breathing dragon. And on the lighter side, there was a quest for the unicorn, which was a walk through maze where guests would follow clues to find a hidden unicorn in an enchanted forest, which sounds pretty cool. So why was Beastly Kingdom abandoned? It all came down to budget. When Disney was developing Animal Kingdom, they had to make some tough financial decisions. And unfortunately, Beastly Kingdom was one of the things cut. And instead, in its place, they built Camp Mini Mickey and as a temporary area, which then later got replaced by Pandora. But, you know, it just never got off the drawing board for Beastly Kingdom. So it was really, I don't know. It's one of those I would love to have seen. Now, here's the interesting thing about we've been talking about the legacy that lives on, and this one's a little bit more unexpected than the others. So some of the Imagineers who worked on Beastly Kingdom later moved to Universal Studios and helped create the wizarding world of Harry Potter. So in a way, those ideas and the magical creatures still came to life just at a different park down the road. So I'm not gonna lie, this one of all of them hurt the most. Now, I loved Camp Minnie and Mickey. We have so many fun memories meeting the characters. It was such a great place to go on rainy days. There was this one time we were like the only people in line to see Donald, and we were waiting to go up, and one of the cast members walked up to Donald and yelled "Aflac" at him, and then Donald just chased him down the walkway. Like, it was just funny. There was always a really cool, exchange with these characters. So I have a lot of fond memories, but I would have given them up. I would have given up those memories for Beastly Kingdom, I think. It just sounds so fun and a creative land. Um, I mean, Disney, is it too late to get Beastly Kingdom to replace Dino Land instead? No, too late? Okay. Well, I thought I'd try. One last park I want to discuss, which is not Disney related, but it is very much related to pop culture and abandoned parks, and it's Six Flags in New Orleans. This is where you will find an amusement park that has been left to rust since 2005. So in 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit, and this park was flooded for over a month, and the damage was so severe that Six Flags decided not to rebuild, and it's just been left abandoned ever since. These days, nature's reclaiming the park, rides are rusting, and buildings are falling apart. So, what's this have to do with pop culture? Well, here's what it has to do with. It's has been used in some TV shows and movies, including Jurassic World. So, Jurassic World, the fourth movie in the blockbuster franchise, it's the film where they finally show the dino park and it looks like the amusement park, which is open to the public. You remember the scene where Jimmy Buffett ran with margaritas? Yeah, well, that scene was filmed there at Six Flags. But the interesting part is that while the movie was filmed there, you don't see any of the rundown park itself. Instead, the crew built a brand new set of the park in the parking lot. They even constructed the raptor enclosures there, only to tear it all down after filming. So while Jurassic World used the location, the decaying rides and crumbling structures didn't make it on screen. However, other films have shot there using the backdrops, including Dawn of the Planet of the Apes from 2014 and Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters from 2013. So, what do you think? Have you visited any of these abandoned parks before they closed? Or, what parks should Disney have gone through and developed? I would love to hear your thoughts. Tag me on social media or click the send me a text link in the episode descriptions and share your experience. Now, for this week's pop pick, I'm sharing something I learned this past weekend, which is totally wild to me. Um, it's the backstory of the University of Oregon's duck mascot and how it's related to Walt Disney. So the duck mascot was originally actually inspired by Donald Duck. And the agreement came to life through a handshake between Disney and the then University of Oregon athletic director Leo Harris in the 1940s. So apparently, Harris was a big fan of Disney. He reached out to Walt to use Donald Duck as the basis for the university's mascot. Walt Disney, also a supporter of higher education and athletics, agreed to let Oregon use Donald's likeness as their mascot. This handshake agreement gave the university permission to use Donald Duck inspired character in a variety of materials, including uniforms, logos, and promo items. So for decades, Oregon used Donald Duck as its official mascot with no issue. However, in the 1970s, Disney began enforcing their copyright regulations and requested the university formalize the agreement. So by 1974, they had the written agreement put in place, giving Oregon the right to use Donald Duck as its mascot in exchange for tighter guidelines on how the character would appear. Now, in the 1990s, after further negotiations with Disney, Oregon's version of the duck mascot was slightly altered to distance it from Donald Duck's official likeness, creating its own new unique version that retains, a Donald-esque look while, being legally distinct. Man, I love a good origin story, and to me that is just a classic one. On a handshake. So good. Well, with that, we add another stamp to our pop culture passport. I hope that this episode inspires you to get out there and explore all that is quirky and cool, even in your own backyard. Follow, download, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Please tell a friend and leave a review if you like what we're doing. It really helps the show grow. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search for The Roaming Yeti. Keep roaming and finding your fun.